Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Continuing, taking a look at some of these programs that we think can win a national title in 2023. And we are on the USC Trojans. This is a team we've talked a lot about in terms of hot on the 2024 recruiting trail, really hot in the transfer portal. You guys have shown us a ton of love, so we do appreciate that. Now we get to talk a little bit about what this team will look like in 2023. Now, before we get into it, we do just want to shout out all of you guys, especially the USC fans, just showing a ton of love to the boys. We talked a lot about this program. We appreciate all the support you guys have shown. So again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. I think we're going to get some more news on the recruiting end of things as well. So if you do enjoy those updates, we have them here as well. Though, without further ado, though, I want to talk a little bit about why this USC team in 2023 can get it done and win a national title. And we're going to start a little plot twist here. We're going to start on the defensive side of the ball. The defensive depth and physicality, I think, is going to look a lot different from what you saw in 2022 here.
And that'll be the thing. Like, you know what this offense is going to be. Caleb Williams, he's that guy. We all know that. But they got to be tougher up front. They got to tackle a little better, and they got to, strike some fear into teams, because you look, teams could run the ball very consistently, especially the better teams. And again, they'd get away with it because they could score enough points and got games out. But I think if they're going to take that next step, they need to start playing with that attitude a little bit, that like Georgia and Texas A&M, some of the guys who are coming over now, Anthony Lucas, Bear Alexander, hopefully they can impart some of that attitude of being really physical, not giving up an inch, and not doing the bend and don't break. It's be up in their face
and take it to opposing defense or opposing offenses. And that's, if this works out, all these transfer portal additions work out, I really do think USC has to be one of the favorites to win a national title. Because if you look at, I think there's one recipe to beating this USC team in the fall, and that's being able to run the football, keeping Caleb Williams off the field. Caleb Williams, when he touches the football, he's going to score points. This is going to be one of the best offenses we've seen in a very long time, I think, in college football in general. The one way you're not going to beat him in a shootout, if you Washington wants to get in a track meet and just try to score more points than USC, I don't see that working out for many teams. The one way you can beat this USC team is if you can run the ball, keep Caleb Williams off the field. I think what Lincoln Riley and this USC program did in the transfer portal puts them in a much better spot to kind of mitigate teams being able to do that, right? You go across the line. This starting defensive line is going to be completely different. And a lot of these guys, like you mentioned, have that SEC caliber of physicality. Anthony Lucas, from what I've heard, absolute dog in spring practice. Everyone knows what Bear Alexander is about. Even a guy like Mason Kopp from Oklahoma State is an absolute hammer at the linebacker position. I think you'll see a front seven particularly that's a lot more physical, but more importantly, deep. When the season got late in 2022 and the guys were banged up, maybe a little tired, that's when USC's defense really started to struggle.
And especially when they were so young last year, it's younger guys do get worn down a little bit. They haven't been in the college weight room for 4 or 5 years or anything. Now, again, they have what looks like essentially two units, both in the D-line spot and linebacker spot, that you can very much count on. And that'll honestly be a massive departure from what they had last year, where, yes, they had some really good players. Tooley, he played really good. Eric Gentry at times, when he was healthy, played decent football. But you're right, they were a little too reliant on a couple of guys. And when those guys went down or wore down a little bit, it really did fall off the track. So now you can throw waves at teams, and you got to think it'll look better. They won't miss as many tackles and make the mistakes they did last year.
It's really hard to see this defense being, with all the talent that they added at positions that they needed to add. It's hard to see this defense not making at least some sort of improvement heading into 2023. And now the second reason, you have to mention, we don't want to lead with Caleb Williams, but Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in college football.
I mean, he'll probably have an argument for the best we've ever seen. I mean, just how dominant he is, how dynamic, and when it looks just plays breaking down, he figures it out. It's just, if you're rooting against USC, it's like torture, because you just can't watch and have any faith that you're going to get a stop. It's like they're chasing him around in the backfield 20 yards. He's got a howitzer. He makes crazy throws. it's agonizing for opponents.
Caleb Williams' ability to make wine out of water, it's Jim Harbaugh quote there. It's truly insane. I mean, like backyard football, and as much as like you see some NFL scouts who are like trying to nitpick Caleb Williams, saying, "Oh, he plays too much backyard football, plays out of control." Through what 5 interceptions last year? Like he takes care of the football. This offense averaged a half a turnover per game last year. So yeah, Caleb Williams sometimes out of control. It might appear, I should say, that it looks like he's out of control. Never out of control.
Yeah, but also if he needs to just sit in the pocket and pick you apart, he can do it. It's just like just because he can make those plays off schedule, and if the offensive line gives up a pressure and he can spin out and make a play, that's like what you're gonna call that a negative? Like that's why he's impossible to stop because you can't get negative plays on him, you can't rattle him. But he can sit in the pocket and rip you up too. It's not like he's just about running around.
I mean, like I hate to make these comps because I'm about to comp him to the best quarterback that we've seen at the NFL level in like a decade, but it's Patrick Mahomes like, and that's the playmaking ability that Caleb Williams has is legitimately Patrick Mahomes like. Now, you have Caleb Williams, the best quarterback in college football. And then you also arguably, and I think the only other team you'd argue has more firepower in terms of offensive weapons might be Ohio State, but USC, a close second. The amount of talent that Caleb Williams is going to be surrounded by, not to mention probably the best offensive-minded head coach in Lincoln Riley calling the plays. Is this offense going to average? I think they could break some records in 2023.
Yeah, I don't know how you stop him. It's like now you add a guy in Dorian Singer who played really good at an offense that wasn't.
Dorian Singer was the leader in the Pac-12 last year in receiving yards, and then USC's like, yeah, we'll take him. They didn't even need a wide receiver. I mean, like if you erase Dorian Singer from this depth chart, I'm still saying this is one of the best offensive weapon groups in the country. And then they add the number one receiver in the Pac-12 from last year. It's truly insane the talent that Caleb Williams will be surrounded by.
Yeah, and then you load up with Marshawn Lloyd at the running back spot. It's like you think it might go down with Red leaving. It's just immediately you just roll in a Marshawn Lloyd who, again, towards the end of the year for South Carolina, just looked unstoppable. And he adds that physicality, and like USC can play a little different where, again, now you got two guys in Jones and Lloyd who are both hammers, both really physical. You combine that with Caleb Williams and what obviously he can do in terms of making explosive plays. It's just good luck stopping. Like, you're just not going to stop this offense. There's no way.
It's actually really funny, and we'll talk about it a little later because I'm high on this offensive line group that they retooled. But this is a team that like everyone preseason in 2022, and it's just the Lincoln Riley haters at this point. We're kind of just like, this team is going to play 7-on-7. They're not physical. This team averaged over 5 yards per rush on the ground last year. And Travis Dye is good. And this is not any knock on Travis Dye. This is more me saying that Marshawn Lloyd, I think, is truly special. He ran behind that's why he transferred. He ran behind a brutal South Carolina offensive line, and that offensive line wasn't going to be any better in 2023. He goes out west. Marshawn Lloyd, I think, is going to be the RB1 in this offense. And again, not even a knock on Austin Jones. I think Marshawn Lloyd is truly that dude. I think this offense is going to have just as much success running the football as they did last year. Dale, I want to put you on the spot here. Did not tell you I'd ask you this question. You're picking a leading receiver for USC in 2023. Who's it going to be?
Mario Williams.
Yeah,
they still have that connection. They're still going to be really good. And I know Dorian Singer can play, but like, don't forget about Mario Williams. He's been awesome since he's been at Oklahoma. He's going to be that guy still.
And they have that chemistry. And that was my pick last year. I remember like all the Jordan Addison hype, and Jordan Addison was that guy. And Mario Williams was also good, but people don't talk enough about Mario Williams. Dorian Singer getting all the hype through the transfer portal, but Mario Williams, absolute dog. And I like how they kind of balance. They have like a bigger body guy in Brandon Rice. Still, another couple guys, and God, we could spend like 20 minutes talking about all the offensive weapons on this team. Deuce Robinson at the tight end position. They haven't had a like tight end that can be dynamic. Deuce Robinson certainly can be dynamic. And then Taj Washington and Zachariah Branch. Taj Washington not getting nearly enough respect for how good he is and kind of getting lost in the shuffle. He's going to catch for 600 plus yards this year.
Yeah, I mean, he was a legacy USC guy very much before the Lincoln Riley time, but like, he was one of the few guys on that team who could stick around and have that ability. It's like, again, he's not one of the new guys, not one of the, like, and we even talked Dorian Singer, like, yeah, he's getting the attention at maybe the expense of Mario Williams because, like, people talk about the new players, but Taj Washington been there forever. He's like a really good, and he isn't those other two. He doesn't have that top end talent, but in terms of dependable wideout play, he's right there.
I think you're underselling Taj Washington a little bit. Like, he might not be as talented. His quick twitch, his quick short area quickness is next level. One other guy, and I promise is the last offensive weapon I will name, Raleek Brown. Transferring over, I think he's going to play a little running back, a little wide receiver, special with the ball in his hands. Like Lincoln, if there's a guy that can figure out how to use Raleek Brown, it is going to be Lincoln Riley. Just adding another offensive weapon to this group. I don't know how defenses are going to stop this team. Dill, moving on to our next reason, and I'm just going to kick it off and ask you the question. Some breakout players on defense that we've seen some flashes, we haven't really seen come to the table yet. Who's your guy in 2023 that's going to be a difference maker on the defense side of the ball for USC here?
I mean, honestly, for me, it's got to be Corey Foreman. Yeah. Just like we saw so much good play out of him last year. They need kind of that next edge rusher. And again, Thule was a good player for sure, but he wasn't that elite guy on the edge. And I'm not sure that's Anthony Lucas either, frankly. Again, he's a bigger body, more like how Thule played, like a very physical, big defensive end. Like, will he? And that's Corey Foreman has that gene of like, man, this guy's right up. Like, he looks like a Von Miller type guy, a little on the slender side, long, athletic. But those are the type of guys who dominate on the edge. Not to say Anthony Lucas can't, but they do have slightly different body types and probably play styles. Corey Foreman, I think, can be a number one or a very like top end edge rusher.
And I feel like people forget. I mean, Corey Foreman was a top 3 player nationally coming out of high school. Like, this dude has every single physical tool in the toolbox that you could possibly want in an edge rusher. My breakout player, and this is going to hurt me to say, I wanted him to come to Michigan. It's going to be Damani Jackson. And you look at that secondary, Mekhi Blackman was good. He's gone. You bring in Christian Roland Wallace. I think you feel good about that. That secondary still was not good. And I don't think it has as much to do with the players as much as some of the scheme. Damani Jackson, if you look at him, if he didn't struggle with injury, I think we would have seen a little bit more of him on the field as a true freshman. Damani Jackson, probably my pick to be a breakout player that could be an all Pac-12 dude at that cornerback position. I got one more guy. And Dill, we were talking pre-show, and you were kind of getting on me about he's not a real breakout player. He's played. Eric Gentry, like if he maximizes what he can be, I really do think he's an all-time. I mean, you saw what he was at as a true freshman at Arizona State. This dude is a little bit different, and I think him and Mason Cobb balance each other out pretty well. Yeah. Mason Cobb more of like a bigger body, physical linebacker. Then Eric Gentry, like 6'4". I think he's still working on filling out that frame, but man, if it clicks for Eric Gentry, I do think he's going to be a guy that can have his fingerprints all over a football.
And there's an element of him in some part embodying the USC defense. Like, if he can take his physicality, be a better, more sure tackler, and kind of do those,
like
the nitty gritty part of that linebacker play right. You're right. He can be. I mean, just like a different type of guy where we've really never seen. Like, you don't see that many linebackers that athletic, that thin. But again, he can put on maybe 10, 20 pounds or so in this offseason and kind of step in and be that guy and be a really sure tackler and do all the small things right. You know, the top end is there, and the ability to make plays that no one else can make is there. So he could be. And again, if he takes that step and him and Mason Cobb together, that's a problem.
And then, I mean, shout out to true freshman Tackett Curtis. Apparently, he's looking like a guy that could play early as well. And this is what it is with this USC team. Is like, I just go down this roster and I literally love it. Like, I just want to shout out every single player in this roster, trying to keep it to just a few guys. They're our last reason, and I kind of hinted at it earlier. This offensive line and run game did not get nearly enough respect last year. Like, so much hype around Caleb Williams. This team ran the football at a high level. Andrew Voorhees, Brett Nealon. They had to replace those guys. Those guys were awesome football players for USC. I think they did a really good job of it. You look at who they brought in the transfer portal. Emmanuel Pregnon coming over from Wyoming. He is a guy that every Power 5 team wanted. Michael Turkin coming over from Florida, probably going to play one of the tackle spots. He's another guy that has played at the SEC level and played at a high level. Justin Dedich at center, Like you look, they're starting 5. You feel really good about it. Jared Kingston could have gone to the NFL draft last year. Then Jonah Monheim graded out as one of the best tackles at PFF last year. This offensive line, all the hype goes to Caleb Williams in this passing attack. This offensive line is very, very good.
And it was huge for them to retool that because you're right. They did lose a lot of guys on that line, of course. And it was really, really good. But you do bring in some real stars. If they can kind of just be what they were last year and run the ball like they did and again, maybe take a bit of a step forward in the pass protection.
Yeah, pass protection was leaky at times, but that run game, like, man, Andrew Voorhees was a road grader.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like they replaced those guys and they just need to be solid. They don't necessarily, I don't think they need to be like the best in the country or anything. But like you really don't, you don't know what you're gonna have because the one guy you're getting back in Monheim or Diedick too, but those two can play. We know they can play. If these transfers can kind of step in and be who we think they are, like they're gonna be really good, and it just adds to like the allure.
That's the thing is like they didn't go out and get guys that you have question marks about. Like Jared Kingston was a bona fide draft prospect. Emmanuel Pregnon, he was all-conference guy at Wyoming, and Michael Turkin started games at Florida at a high level. So like this offensive line, I still think is going to be good. It's really hard, and maybe we'll end it on this. If there's a reason why USC can't win a national title, what is it? I have my idea. It's probably the defense, but what are you saying is going to hold this team back from winning a national title in 2023? Certainly in the offense.
100% the defense. Like obviously if like injury
Alex Grinch specifically
something that'd be obvious, but like that's every team. If your star quarterback goes down, that's a problem. But like in just terms of on-field play, it's the defense.
Yes.
And if they're really bad, Alex Grinch doesn't get fired. That's like, that would be concerning for everything.
This is the Alex Grinch conversation is interesting. Like I wonder if it just gets better year 2 under the Alex Grinch scheme, but I'm not that high on him. And I wonder what USC fans think about that. Never thought he was that impressive at Oklahoma. I'm surprised when Lincoln Riley came to USC, Alex Grinch was one of those guys where he's like, I need him coming with me. Because I was like,
get on the plane with me. Yeah,
it was just a weird one. But anyways, I think he has a chance. It's a non-negotiable. If this defense does not take strides with the talent that they have on this side of the ball, Alex Grinch has got to be looking for a job in 12 months. Anyways, that's what we got for USC. I think it's the I think they're it probably goes Georgia, Michigan, USC in my idea for national championship.
I don't think they're going to like you putting Michigan over them, but
yeah, that's fair. I mean, maybe a little bit of homer there, but this USC team poised to do something special in 2023. And anytime you get a chance to run it back with the Heisman quarterback, you can do special things. Again, appreciate the Trojan fans. Check in the fellas out if you do enjoy the content. Consider subscribing to the channel. It's one of the teams that we are most high on heading into 2023, so we'll certainly be talking about it. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.